This is my fresh out of the home theater review for Project Hail Mary in 4K UHD. Not going to get into whether or not this movie is good or bad. I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on the audio and video quality. Now let's go over a few tech specs. This movie was shot in 4.5 and 6.5K. It's got a 4K DI. It's rated PG-13. Runtime is 156 minutes. And the aspect ratio is 239:1, 1.76. So this does have the switching IMAX aspect ratio. Actually, most of it is in the IMAX aspect ratio. And the audio is in Dolby Atmos. Now, I just got done watching this right in here in my home theater, which I've got 18 Krix speakers and 8 RBH subwoofers. So we're gonna look at the Dolby Atmos Object Viewer to see what the sound is doing in my home theater. So this is gonna give you an idea of what it might sound like in your home theater. That's if you have a surround setup, of course. All right, so here we have Rylan waking up from his cryo sleep towards the start of the movie, and we can see that in the top middle and the top rear speakers. That is the ship's voice that is coming through in the overheads. Everything in the bed layer channels, you're going to hear some light ambiance and some light music. And as you can also see that this is a static mix, and it is a static mix for 100% of the movie. Now here's a pretty cool scene which actually turns your subwoofers on. This comes in at around 37 minutes in. So as Rylan is moving and maneuvering the ship, every time he makes a move, you can hear or you can feel the engine thrusters kick on as it blasts through your subwoofers. So you get a nice little jolt of bass every time he turns the stick, and you can hear the engine pulsate and blast through your subs. So this is a pretty cool scene and actually does put some pretty decent usage to your subwoofers. It's nothing demo worthy, but you do get a nice little surprise jolt from the subs. And one more really cool sounding scene comes in at around 1 hour 45 minutes. This is when Rylan and Rocky are out. Well, Rylan is outside of the ship and he's about to go make his predator collection with his cage. And as we can see, we have some overhead effects, which is essentially just space debris flying overhead. And in the lower channels, we can also get some pretty decent sound movement when things are just flying by from front to back, left to right, and vice versa. Also, we have some music playing in the background as well. Subwoofers are swelling up here. Nothing really deep, but this is the biggest action type scene in the entire movie, which will put most of your speakers to use. Unfortunately, I do have a lot more speakers than most people do, so I've got 18 channels here, and you can see that my second row of surrounds, my center surround, and my top front and top rear height channels don't get used that much for this scene. They'll sporadically kick on, as you can see right here. Otherwise, this does remain pretty light for the top channel activity, and it is really front heavy for the duration of this movie. So despite this being a big budget sci-fi movie, so I was expecting more surround activity. Unfortunately, it is pretty light for the most part. So as far as video quality, the stuff that takes place on Earth is going to be super detailed and I would say 4K crispy. So you will notice fine lines and wrinkles on faces, little individual pores, and even the texture on clothing, on sweaters, just little fibers are going to be rendered just about perfectly. Now everything that takes place off Earth, which happens on the ship or anywhere else, is going to be in the 1.76 aspect ratio, which is going to fill your entire screen. So for these scenes, you are going to notice a very fine layer of grain throughout. So what they did was used a process that they call film out. So this is where they take the digital footage, print it on film stock, real film stock, and then they rescanned it, giving the image a film-like quality. So it's going to have that grainy film look to it, which I believe is the same process that they use for the Batman, which also happens to be from the same cinematographer. So you will notice some really nice colors, especially for the scene where Rylan is hanging out outside of the ship, and you can see that giant planet where it's a lot of reds and greens. So the HDR in this movie can have some really nice saturation and really does make some of the colors really pop really nicely. I wouldn't say it's HDR Aquaman types of HDR vividness, but for the colors that are there on screen, it does have some really nice vibrancy to it. Now this is a fairly dark movie, so shadow details always really well maintained. Blacks are nice, deep, dark and contrasty, and the specular highlights will pop off the screen, and the highlight detail is well maintained, which you'll see in a lot of stuff that happens in the school. You can see outside of the window, so there's a lot of detail outside of that without being overclipped or overblown, and the explosions and the flames really do jump off the screen. And again, most of this movie does have that taller aspect ratio, so it is going to fill your projector screens and your TV sets. So when it does switch aspect ratios, the majority, I'm going to say about 90% of the movie, well, maybe like 85% of the movie is going to be in the full screen aspect ratio, and then it'll switch to the smaller aspect ratio, the 2.39. So if you do hate the black letterbox bars, most of this movie is going to fill your entire screen. Overall, I thought this was a really good looking movie. I don't think anyone's going to really whip this out to show off how good your display is going to look or to use as demo material, but it's got some really great detail and it's got really nice HDR. So I'm going to go with an 8.6 for video. Audio-wise, this is unfortunately the same experience I had at my local Dolby Cinema, which I think was underwhelming. I was hoping that maybe it would sound better at home, but that just wasn't the case. It's really front heavy with really light surround usage. I thought there'd be more envelopment since a lot of this movie happens inside this confined ship where there would be, well, at least I thought there would be a lot of ambiance, but no. And the bass response I felt didn't go really below 30 hertz, so that was kind of weak sauce too. So I'm gonna go meet it halfway and go with a 5 for audio. Well, those are my thoughts on Project Hail Mary on iTunes 4K digital streaming. I highly doubt this is going to sound any better on the 4K disc, but hey, anything can happen. Well, what are your thoughts on the 4K transfer of Project Hail Mary, and how was your audio experience and video experience? Leave your comment down below and let me know, and thanks for watching.